Welcome to the Lair of Secrets podcast. Tonight we're talking about monster books for Shadowdark.
Let's talk monsters. We're looking at a bunch of Shadowdark monster books, Shadowdark adjacent books, and then some monster tools. First up, we've got Monster 24 by Tom Phillip. Apparently he had a lot of free time in 2024. He created 250 monsters and published them to Reddit. And this book compiles all of his various critters into one document. And he's got like all these different variants, right? So he's got gaggles of hags, he's got forest hags, tomb hags, venom hags, plants, carnivorous cave moss, blood orchid, and vampire grass, and oodles of slimes and oozes. So chaos pudding, green slime, and umber jelly. Nice collection of monsters. I've downloaded this one. You can get it on itch.io. It's pay what you want. Recommended price is $2. I downloaded it earlier this week. I like the sheer quantity of monsters and like variations on monsters. So pretty nifty.
That sounds cool. I took a glance at this one when you posted it on Blue Sky or Mastodon. I don't remember. We're on both, by the way.
We are.
It looks interesting. The more I run Shadowdark, I think having a variety of monsters will be useful. There is a way in Shadowdark itself to make your monsters unique. Having a good template to start from or ideas to start from is pretty darn good. 250 monsters it's not quite a monster a day for 2024, but that's really darn impressive.
Yeah, it is pretty darn impressive. And I mean, I think the thing I liked about this one is just kind of like looking through the sheer quantity of monsters. And again, I just got it, so I haven't had a chance to delve too deeply in to talk about the actual quality of the different monsters. But I liked that there were some of these different variations, and sometimes I'm just lazy. Like when I was working on my dungeon crawl, I wanted to just have some cave flora, right? Just different plants and stuff. And there's not really much in the core book. So going to this book, though, I would have been able to easily find a bunch of stuff. Coming up with some variant trolls, I think sometimes like when you want to throw different monsters at your players and like, oh, well, it's a troll. I know how to deal with that. But do you know how to deal with a moss troll? That's one of the monsters in this book. We've also got a troll hound, a spectral troll, which I think we have that in 5th edition. But anyways, lots of different trolls, right? So I think it's cool to have the variety.
Yeah, for sure.
Another zine that I was looking at was VALHOL by Nashcraft. This goes for $7. I haven't actually picked this one up yet. They do have a YouTube preview over on DriveThruRPG, but I can't speak to the total number of monsters in here because their blurb doesn't explain it. But they say new epic monsters, and then they've got a bunch of other stuff. This zine actually is meant to extend Cursed Scrolls number 3 and number 1. I think primarily it's a Norse-themed one, so clearly it's drawing a lot of inspiration from Midnight Sun. But other things you can find in this book: 4 new classes based on Norse sagas, a Norse God's Boon table, new blessings, and a blot system alternative for carousing, which I'm kind of interested in what a blot system is. I don't know if that's not sure. Like dropping dice, right? So I'm curious about this one, but I kind of hit my budget.
Yep. Although I do see you will probably pick this one up, considering that you have Cursed Scrolls 3 and have some Norse themes in your current Shadowdark games.
Yes. I think it will nicely complicate. It will complicate and complement my lunchtime game. So that one's worth checking out. And we will have links to all this stuff in the show notes. So I'm not going to try and read off these very complex URLs right now. This next one is the Shadowfinder Complete Bestiary. I had seen this Kickstarter while it was running a couple of days ago, and I'm just kind of astounded. So what they're doing is they're including every Pathfinder 1E Bestiary, so the first edition Bestiary, 1 through 6, converted for Shadowdark. That is a lot of monsters.
That is a lot of monsters.
I don't even know what the quantity of monsters is, but that's a lot of monsters. So they had prices range from like $25 for the PDF to $29 for, I think it was the PDF and a print-on-demand version of the book. And then the Kickstarter is supposed to drop release in October 2025. So I'm hoping that once this actually comes out, as people are looking at it, we can take another look at it. But damn, that's a lot of monsters.
Yep. And Ken and I were talking before we started recording. My question is hopefully they use the ones out of the SRD and not ones that Paizo is still retains control over, or it hasn't given away their control over it. So I wouldn't want this to disappear under a wave of litigation or something like that.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter didn't really address that one, but
no, they addressed whether or not they were going to be like publishing it under the OGL, I think, when they said that they were not going to because of the controversy around the OGL.
Yes.
But like, even if they're just pulling from the SRD, as long as they're going by the license of the SRD, I think they'll be fine. And there's a lot of monsters there.
Yes. So they've got a lot of monsters. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how this one turns out. So those are kind of the big monster books for Shadowdark that I came across. There are more out there, but these are the ones that pique my interest the most from a sheer quantity of monsters and theme related to my own campaign. Another resource, which actually when I was posting on the various social medias, this came up a lot where people just said, oh, do this because you don't need all these monster books because you could just convert it. And so it's a PDF by Night Noon Games, also available on itch.io, and it's creating and adapting monsters for Shadowdark. It's pay what you want, but it's $5 is the recommended price. And so this is very handy fan-created rules for making your own monsters or converting them from other systems. So they have advice like vibes over complexity, right? So go with something that sounds cool rather than something that's mechanically right? Like make it feel like a nifty monster. Don't like add all these crunchy bits. Use natural language to describe things. Like Shadowdark doesn't have a lot of reserved words and jargon that it's using for specific things. Talks about monster spells are weird. So like players have spells. Monsters have weird and more dangerous spells. So kind of keep that in mind. And then rules are meant to be broken. Basically they say, hey, like we all say, I think everybody says, like, if you're the DM, you can always break the rules, right? And so, if you just really want your monster to do a thing, have your monster do a thing. Some of the options that they include in terms of how to build it is build by equivalent. So basically, like, and I think we've talked about this before, because we like to steal from other things. If your monster is kind of like a knight or a bugbear or a zombie, then just use that stat block, right? Like it's the
just
reskin dead, right? Just reskin it, right? Like, oh, it's a really tough monster that can take a lot of hits before it falls down. Well, that kind of sounds like a zombie. And so these are the examples that they gave in the book as well, but or I should say the zine. So anyway, that's one. Just reskin it, right? Something's close enough. It's good enough for the purposes of your campaign. Don't sweat the small stuff. Just file the serial number off and use it as something else. Build by adaptation. So like you look at in 5th edition and they've got the bandit captain, right? Which is a higher level version of the bandit. Okay. Shadowdark has a bandit. So but they don't have a bandit. They don't have a bandit captain. So just kind of like riff off of the 5e version and go, okay, well, he gets 2 attacks instead of 1. He's got some more hit points and that kind of thing. So it's basically kind of tweaking things by taking the base and leveling it up. And then they have the most complicated one is build by benchmark, right? So they give the example of a Yak Folk warrior from one of the giant books, adventure campaign books that WotC released. And so basically, okay, a Yak Folk warrior is CR3. Well, go look at some CR3 monsters in Shadowdark and use those as the basis of how strong it should be, and then iterate. And then it has specific guidelines about how you can kind of build things in different directions. It also has a talent bank that describes all of the monster capabilities and a big list of all of the monster spells with the descriptions of what the spells do. So I think those two things are super handy if you're building your monster by yourself. If you're building your own monsters and you're just like, instead of paging through the Shadowdark book, you could just look at this big list. And then it has a ton of monsters too, which I didn't realize when I got it. I thought it was just like suggestions and rules and guidelines, but it has a bunch of horrors, including like dogs, ettins, pseudo dragons, because we love pseudo dragons, an eyeball wall, which I don't know what that does, but I'm intrigued. And then a number of like standard NPCs like pyromancer, cultist, whatever. So I think it's got good baseline monsters and lots of guidance for how to just make your own monsters.
Yeah, I like this. I did look into this one, and it was reminiscent to how I would create new monsters in like 1st or 2nd edition D&D. Like 3rd edition D&D was, and kind of beyond, like 5th edition is kind of like this too. Like you can make in 3rd edition monsters are kind of like made like characters,
right?
With character levels and other things like that. Whereas 1st and 2nd edition D&D, all the monsters were very different in a lot of different ways. And so that I got used to just reskinning things, or taking stuff and going, oh yeah, this is pretty beefy, but if I take these powers out and reskin it a little bit, that we could do that. That's how I did in Shadowdark. Actually, I used that kind of concept to take the Ankeg, which is like level 5 or level 7, and then made it an adolescent version of that by taking out some hit points, reducing armor class, things like that, and kind of putting it into the right level for Shadowdark monster for the appropriate for those particular characters. And so this follows in that vein. So I'm going to be reading this one a bit more deeply. Let's see if there's any other tips that I could pick up.
Yeah, and I think, even if you're a veteran of doing, because I think anybody who's been DMing for a long time or just running a game for a long time is used to just kind of doing those kind of tweaks that you were describing and, scaling up and down. I think the benefit for experienced people is, one, just a gut check. Like, does this make sense? And then also, like, really this talent bank with all the monster capabilities, and it breaks it down by different kinds of talents, like an innate talent, arcane talent. So just being able to kind of browse through that and just go, I want one of those, and I want one of those, was super helpful. So I think it's a good, solid monster. But like people suggested, you don't want to get anything else if you don't want to buy a bunch of monster books, although I don't understand why. But if you don't want to buy a bunch of monster books, this one will get you pretty far. And it'll allow you to use all those books you got on your shelf like I do.
I'd really like to have a list of like all the Shadowdark monsters by level and things like that. But I think we have a tool for that a little bit later.
Yes, we have things that are coming, yes.
When I'm going through the Shadowdark book right now, they're all alphabetical. And so like having a list like that in the, from the creating and adapting, having a bank of all their abilities and stuff like that is really useful. But in the Shadowdark book, when I'm trying to create an adventure, I have to look through and go, okay, oh, that's CR5. No, level 1 characters will just get wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah, so now we'll move into kind of Shadowdark adjacent, like old school Renaissance books, stuff that was just kind of created for either use with any system or just it's kind of just adjacent. So the first one, again, because I was looking, what inspired me down this road in the first place is that I was looking for monsters and just inspiration for my lunchtime campaign. As we talked about before, I don't have a lot of time for prep. Right? Sometimes it's just pulling a couple things together at the last minute and just going. And so being able to have a couple of source books that I can just page through for inspiration, grab a thing and go is awesome. So this next one is called Ruincairn Bestiary. It was for the old school Renaissance game Ruincairn, which just I wasn't familiar with this one before I came across this source book, but just looking at it seems pretty standard stat blocks. I don't think it would take a whole lot to convert it to Shadowdark. It has 100 Norse-inspired monsters, and it includes, the previews included saber-tooths, ogres, giant octopi, and whatever the heck a grave newt is. So it looks pretty cool. I was starting to run out of money for my gaming budget for this one, so that one is kind of like on the back burner. But it does look interesting, especially if you're running a Norse campaign like me.
Yep. And speaking of money, by the way, none of the links that we're going to put in here are going to be affiliate links.
Right.
Because we're just not set up for that. Well, we're doing this for fun. So at least for now, it'd be nice to pay the server bills at some point. But
it would. It would. The next most recommended resource was the Monster Overhaul. And so I think I have the link here through DriveThruRPG. I actually got it through Indie Press Revolution. So I'll include that link as well. So this it's an OSR style book. So it's got those kinds of stat blocks. So again, really easy to convert. It has 200 monsters, which is just great. But then it reminds me of a lot like the old Monster Ecology write-ups from the Dragon magazine. So it's got entries for like adventurers and barbarians. And then for the adventurers, it gives D100 names and character sheets, and then the same for the barbarians. And then for monsters, it delves beyond the stat block. So goblins get D100 names and traits, plus physical descriptions, plus motivations, plus mounts, plus elite weapons, plus goblin super weapons, and loot.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. I ordered the print version of this because, again, I thought it was really cool, and I loved just all of the different charts that it had in it, because I think we also really, really love charts. But other things that were cool, it's got a random table like 50 mercenary jobs, some generic maps for a wizard tower, villages, castle, that kind of thing. And it has stat blocks. And like just looking at the adventurer one, so it's got like number appearing, what they look like varies wildly, often outlandish, well armed and swaggering. Voice, professional and bold. Wants, wealth and power. Morality, pragmatic. Intelligence, at least as smart and paranoid as the PCs. So it's not just, your standard stat block. It's also kind of like really quick hit. What is the motivation for this particular monster or character or what have you, which I thought was pretty darn nifty.
That is cool.
So I'm gonna do when it arrives, I'm gonna do an unboxing and kind of page through, because it's one of these things that I think people looking at it and seeing all the things that you can do with this book, it's going to make you want to get it. So it was ultimately, this is the most expensive thing on my list, and it's the reason why I keep saying I can't buy all the things. It was $30 for the PDF or $60 for the PDF plus print. And again, you can get it through Indie Press Revolution, which I haven't bought anything from them in a long time. So I also was happy to support Indie Press Revolution.
They are good. Yep. I picked up Eat the Break from them at Origins this last year, which is coming up again soon. So I may see this in, I could possibly hold this in my hand in 2 weeks or so.
Ooh, right. Origins. Yeah. And I always go by their booth whenever I'm at a con that they're at. I'm always checking out their booth because they always have amazing stuff. So that is kind of the books. Now we have 2 tools that I've used quite a lot, because even if you just look at the Cursed Scrolls and the core rulebook, you still have a ton of monsters. So the first resource is Shadowdark Tools. The link will be in the show notes, but the site is called Shadowdark Tools. There's a monster reference section, which allows you to filter monsters from the core rules plus the 3 Cursed Scrolls. And then you can filter by a whole plethora of criteria, including monster level. That seems pretty straightforward. Environment. Type, so angel, aberration. Movement type, burrow, climb, fly. Attack, so blood drain, petrify, venom. Effect, blindness and charm. I mean, there are many more traits than these, but this is just to give you an idea. Trait, so corrosive, damage reduction, immune to non-silvered weapons. It's a cool way to filter through all of the awesome monsters that we have in Shadowdark. And I think it's helpful for me during game prep to be able to go, okay, I need something that is between CR 0 and 1, and I want it to be something that lives underground. And maybe I'm looking for particular spell effects, right? So, very helpful.
2 things. One, we're probably only going to be able to put shadowdarktools.com, because when I click the link in our show notes, even though it says /reference after it, that leads to basically a 404 error or an error on the
I see
server. Yeah. I don't know if that's because it's a certain flavor of React that's running it, or like for routing, or it's something up with their server. But if you click on it on the reference from their site, it will take you to the right place, but we just can't link that particular URL. So it's just shadowdarktools.com, and then you'll have to click one more time. The other thing is, we can tell that Ken has run a lot of D&D because he keeps saying CR and not level.
And not monster level, right?
And not monster level.
Yeah, sorry. Old habits. Okay. CRD8 Shadowdark mistakes we make.
We know what you're talking.
This site, while we're here, it has some other nifty little tools. So it has an adventure ideas generator. So it'll create adventure names for you, like locate the mysterious plague sweeping across the land, or adventure sites like Enclave of the Dark Gods, or Crypts of Broken Hope. And then you can it'll generate like a location map. So you can, if you were trying to build a dungeon, you just click generate locations, and it gives you kind of a grid and some icons to indicate what's there. So it's kind of like a mapping tool, but like a very basic mapping tool. And then it's got some random encounter generators, I guess, and NPC name generators. So there's a lot of stuff you can play around with here. It's a fun little site. I recommend checking it out.
Yep. And I think they took some of the things like rival crawlers and some of the other random tables that are in the book and made them more automated. So if you say, hey, I want a rival crawlers of a group of 3 crawlers, it will give you some names and ancestries and levels and classes.
Right. Same thing with tavern generators, right? So like it's basically using the Shadowdark rules, and then you can choose to generate 5 taverns, and you can decide what tier of wealth you want it to be. And so one it created was the Death's Moon Inn, standard tier, known for its broken fireplace. Don't go there if you're cold. So very helpful tool. And then the last one that we have on our list is the one that will specifically help you, which is Ken the DM's Shadowdark RPG monsters by level. Different Ken the DM. It's good to know that there's more than one Ken the DM out there. But if you click through into this thing, it sorts all the Shadowdark monsters by level.
Someone got frustrated like I did.
Yes.
But actually did the work and put everything in a nice table format of level, what their specials might be, like kobolds have their dodge special, rats have their disease special, and even the page in the book where those things are located on. I mean, it's a very simple table, but it is so useful.
Yes, it is very useful, and it's only the core Shadowdark book, but still, I think it's still super helpful because, I mean, I still haven't read through the whole of the Shadowdark book because there are a lot of monsters in the core book, and there's some that you may not even have realized that they have. So this is a great resource for just kind of going shopping for monsters, but also just kind of reminding yourself what's actually in the Shadowdark book.
Thanks for coming out, attending our latest Minion and Future Overlord training. Feel free to like and subscribe us. Come on over to layersecrets.com for all of our episodes, or if you're watching this on YouTube, like I said, like and subscribe there. If you want extra stuff, we've put stuff out for our various actual plays and other things like that. Definitely head on over to layersecrets.com and you can get all our links, but also all the extra stuff that are there, which will also include all these links and all of our other Shadowdark materials that we've put out as well.
Yeah, and I would add, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg, or the beginning of the mountain, or whatever other metaphor you would like to use. I imagine there are a ton of other monster books out there that we haven't come across yet. So if you have one that you like, please stop by YouTube or the site and let us know what your favorite monster books are. And who knows, maybe we will do another D8 monster resources for Shadowdark sometime in the future.
Yes, we promise we will dig too deep.